Hello and welcome to Compassion Watch, the television outreach of the Prince George's Compassion Project.
Addressing domestic violence and animal cruelty at the root cause.
I'm Tim Saffel.
And I'm Linda Saffel.
Thanks for tuning in.
And a worldwide thank you to all of our viewers who are watching this program through the internet at www.compassionwatch.org.
We believe that the county should set a positive example through statutes, regulations, policies, and procedures that demonstrates that we value the life of all creatures, whether human or animal.
This is a principle that affects many aspects of life and addresses many of the current situations that the county is trying to deal with.
A simple example that we've often seen is where a person, either a child or an adult, feels that an animal that is unwanted or simply being a nuisance is disposable, like a homeless cat in the neighborhood.
The next thing you know, that person is abusing other people, like a sibling, spouse, elder, or child.
Or a person who is in the habit of abusing a spouse turns to the family pet when the spouse is not there.
It seems like it's all the same thing, a lack of respect for living creatures, whether human or non-human, that is taken out on whatever creature happens to be available at the moment.
This problem is significant enough, but it's only the beginning.
A child's lack of respect for fellow students can lead to bullying and violence in the schools.
And that can lead to truancy and groups of young people in the streets where they should be getting an education.
Gangs can get into trouble by committing crimes, which can ruin the lives of the young people, make our neighborhoods unsafe, and lower property values.
But then, if a child is treated as though he or she has no value, that can lead to low self-esteem and discourage the child from achieving all that is possible, either in school or in later life.
It sounds like one great big downward spiral.
Well, there's good news on the flip side. Studies have shown that a child that grows up with responsibility for a family pet or a sibling tends not to be involved in violent behavior later in life.
So, a person who learns compassion for others will not likely be engaged in animal abuse or domestic violence. That's a very important relationship between animal cruelty and domestic violence, known as the link.
On this episode of Compassion Watch, we will be getting to know the candidates for the office of Prince George's County Executive that we will be voting on in the primary election on September 14, 2010.
We want to be sure that our selection of a candidate contributes to the promotion of the human-animal bond that we feel will help decrease animal cruelty and domestic violence.
We brought the candidates into the studio to ask them questions that will help us to cast our vote for the candidate that is most likely to make a positive difference.
Creative changes that would show respect for living creatures and promote the human-animal bond would go a long way toward improving the county.
First, some information about how our forum works.
Each candidate was required to file with the Board of Elections.
And when they did, we contacted them with a letter and with an email message.
We invited them to participate in the forum and provided a copy of the questions that we were going to ask.
Then, in order to get the greatest participation, we scheduled time slots in the studio that were convenient for the candidates.
Every candidate was asked the same questions without any comment or clarification, and their answers were videotaped.
Then, through the miracle of nonlinear editing, each of the candidates' answers was combined as though they were all in the studio at the same time.
It would have been impossible to actually get them all here at the same time.
There are 5 candidates for county executive in the upcoming primary election.
And 4 of them responded to our invitation to participate in the forum.
So let's introduce the candidates to our viewers in alphabetical order.
Candidate Rashern L. Baker III. Candidate Samuel H. Dean did not respond to our invitation. Candidate Michael A. Jackson. Candidate Jerron Levi. Candidate Henry C. Turner, Jr.
Okay, our first question. First of all, tell us about your childhood. Did you have pets as a child? And what was your most memorable experience that involved an animal?
Well, I grew up in the military. My dad was a career military soldier, and so I lived on military bases most of my life, both in the States and overseas. And but when we were in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, we would spend our summers in Valdosta, Georgia, which is where my family's from. And my granddad had a farm there. So he always had dogs, cows, horses, you know, the whole 9 yards. So it was great for us to be outdoors as kids. And we grew up around animals, and so did my mom. And my most, as a child growing up, was when we had our dog in Okinawa, Japan. And we absolutely loved him. And when we got ready to come back to the States, he was too old for us to bring back to the States. And we had to leave him with another family. And I just remember my sister, who was very, very young then, just crying, and all of us being so sad. And the family we left our dog with, Snoopy was his name, and brought him to the airport to see us off. But that probably was both the saddest and happiest time that with an animal, with our dog.
Yes, thank you. I grew up here in Prince George's County, and as a child, pretty much everybody in the family had pets. I had a dog named Kino, and she was a beautiful Rottweiler. The thing I remember most about her is her innate nature of ensuring that she took care of her family, which was us, and a very loving, very caring animal. But most importantly, she had a possessive streak about her. She made sure that we were comfortable. You know, oftentimes in the neighborhood where you'd see, particularly for the younger ones of us, you'd see when someone is approached in the family, she made sure that that individual was going to be safe. And once she made sure that individual was safe, then she became friendly to the person who would approach her. So for us, that was important to us. It gave you that sense of security, but it also gave you the sense of security that she was socialized enough to be able to mingle amongst those of us in the community. And I think it's very important, particularly when you're growing up. Young people have spats in communities. You know, you may have a little tiff, a little argument with some friends of yours, and she'd be right there to ensure that things would be okay. And oftentimes, because it was a Rottweiler, you know, that would help us out as well. You know, sometimes you see the young people scaring away, but she would stay where she was supposed to be, right with us.
I had many pets as a child. I had a number of cats. I had several hamsters. So I had a number of pets as a child. And probably my most memorable experience was one of my cats, Splimp. Was his name. My dad named him Splimp, and he was just an adorable cat. I loved that cat. Occasionally he would be out, he would escape and get outside and get into a cat fight or something like that, but Splimp was just a delightful cat. I love that cat. I remember Splimp to this day. But yeah, I was quite a pet lover when I was little.